patch 1.10 is here, and it's another great patch. I love all of Riot's patches. I gotta say, overall, I give Riot a grade of A for all the patches they've done basically since the start of the game. What I will say is there is a lot missing here that you guys are probably like, why didn't they change these cards? And you guys will see that in a second. But there's a really good explanation for it, which makes a whole lot of sense on the side of Riot and the game design in general. So very happy to see that they actually held back on those changes for a little bit and instead focused on some very interesting changes here. Some are very interesting. Some are obviously pretty expected. So I'm super excited to get into this. As always, my name is Justin, also known as Shit Just Works, and today we are going over the patch 1.10 update for Legends of Runeterra. Alright, we have arrived, everybody. Patch 1.10, and at the very end, I gotta say, for those of you who might watch my tournament videos, among other things, there is something incredible for in tournaments in general, finally, that they changed and added for the competitive scene, and oh man, am I excited, especially for these upcoming Duels of Runeterra and Ascent of Targon tournaments. But with that said, let's go ahead and get into the patch here. The first thing that they did actually mention is okay, so this is what I meant was missing. A lot of Targon changes are missing. There's not a whole lot. There's like Aurelion Soul had no changes. Not that I think he necessarily needed to change, but Hush, a card that a lot of people thought needed change, is not getting a change, and I don't think there's actually a single Targon card on this list now that I think about it. So, but I like that because I don't personally think the meta is still solved. Like I think that people are still trying to experiment, figure out what the best decks are. There obviously are some higher profile decks such as Swain TF and Lux Aurelion Soul, like decks that stick out that do really well. But I don't know. I just don't think it's 100% figured out. So I'm glad they decided to wait on pulling the trigger there. They said in 2 weeks they are going to take another look at specific Targon tuning, which is awesome to hear. More specifically, I mentioned Aurelion Soul and Hush. It looks like they want to adjust the difficulty level of Aurelion Soul's level up. Doesn't say whether it's up or down, so we'll see as far as that's concerned. And an escalating cost to Hush, so I imagine, you play it for 3, you get another copy in your hand, but it costs 4. You play it again, you get another copy, it costs 5. So theoretically, that means you can only play 3 in one turn now. But it still maintains that it costs 3 on the first cast, which is interesting. I thought they would just change it to 4, so it's interesting that they might go that route. But anyways, all right. We see here. Look who we got. Look who we got, everybody. We got Ezreal. That is easy. Ezreal has been changed finally to what I think most people expected him to be changed to, which is 10 plus targets. Now, I will say it was interesting. Somebody proposed like changing his cost to 2 and only making his level up do like 1 damage per spell cast. So I kind of liked that route as well, but it seems like they actually like his kind of level 2 win condition, which I also love. I love that that's kind of an OTK win con in this deck. So they did maintain that, just make his level up a little bit harder, which I like, right? I mean, it is your win condition. So at the end of the day, if the win condition is a little bit harder to meet, then it makes Ezreal overall a little less broken as a champion. And 10, come on, let's be honest. There's, especially with stuff like Riptide and whatever else might come out in the future, there's plenty of targeting stuff. All right, it ain't no problem getting some targets down for Ezreal. So this is pretty awesome. They did mention too that they discussed this previously. That's an understatement. I'm pretty sure they've mentioned this like every patch note since the beginning of the game about Ezreal, and so most of the time Karma is in that conversation as well. So pretty happy to see this. Lee Sin, yes, I love what they do. I was not expecting this change for Lee Sin. I was thinking like what was he before? He was 6 health. I was thinking they would like increase his attack, maybe make him like a 5/6 or something like that, and keep him at the 6 cost. But I got to agree, he felt kind of awkward at 6, especially in the type of decks that he wanted to be in with something like Fizz, right? Like Fizz, Lee Sin, the multi-cast spell with deep med and stuff like that. This feels a lot better with him being cheaper. And Not only that, oh, and I will say they did make his level up a little bit harder. So I like that, right? He's cheaper to play, easier to get on the board, but a little harder to level up. Feels right. The better change, though, is that his champion spell is no longer Dragon's Rage. So part of me is a little disappointed because I actually was starting to open up a little bit more to Dragon's Rage as a really good card, especially with all the slow Celestial stuff floating around. But I will say, when you get it in hand as a champion spell, it usually feels kind of bad, especially early on in the game if you do get like a Lee Sin on turn 6. And especially now if you're getting it on turn 4, Dragon's Rage is not really going to be useful for quite some time. So they actually changed it to Sonic Wave, which Sonic Wave inherently gets you 2 spells, and it's burst. So you can basically play Lee Sin with spell mana and instantly, if you have another Lee Sin in hand, instantly have 2 spell procs for his Challenger and Barrier. So overall, that was a genius play. I love that they actually did that with Lee Sin. It supports his double casting archetype as well. So hats off to Riot for another great champion change and buff, and in Ezreal's case, nerf. So now the followers and spells, not a whole lot of changes as far as this is concerned. Like, generally speaking, there's a lot less cards changed in this patch. War Chefs was kind of unexpected. I'm not gonna lie. I am the first one to say I don't like Demacia. Is just like, not that I don't like Demacia, but it's super easy to play, and it's just like, okay, turn 2, I play turn 2 card. Like, War Chefs, though, I didn't have a problem with. It's very, very strong. I don't know if it necessarily needed to change, but I also don't think it's bad at 1-3. I just think that now, I don't know, people are going to think a little bit more with their 2-drops, right? Like, you might not just auto-include War Chefs, whereas it was basically every Demacia deck, War Chefs was an auto-include. So this still feels pretty good. It's basically a 2-4 for 2 cost when it gives a unit support, right? And then if you compare it to something like Laurent Protege, that's a 2-4 a Challenger for 3 cost. So this does seem more in line with stats, but definitely gonna take a hit to the Demacia and the Scout decks, right? So Flash of Brilliance, another. All right, listen, I gotta give credit where credit is due. They are not scared. They are not scared whatsoever to go ahead and make revert changes and change the same card like 5 times. You know, some people might look at that as like, I don't know what they're doing. They're making so many changes. Like, what is this? That's not the case. This is, listen, everybody makes mistakes. We all make mistakes, especially in a card game because you have so many more cards and new sets that come out. Being able to be aware of, you know, cards that you might have screwed up in the first place is key, and it's something that will help the longevity of the game. You know, 5 sets from now, if they're still changing something in the base set, then that's good. And that's something that if you compare it to something like Hearthstone, it took Hearthstone years to change cards in the base set. And this just now happened, I think, in the last year they started doing that. So I love it. I love they're reverting it back. Heimer has seen a huge dip in play. I, from the beginning, said I did not like Flash of Brilliance at 4, so I'm very happy to see it back at 3. It just feels right at 3, and it gives those 3-cost decks, or Improbulator now, things to actually utilize for that 3-cost strategy. So I do think Heimer is viable. I think this one minor change actually makes Heimer very viable with something like Improbulator Beam now. So I think that's it. It's Tri-Beam Improbulator, right? Yeah, okay. So, super happy to see this back at 3. Overgrown Snapvine. I like it. It's supposed to be aggressive, right? So having it more attack than the health makes sense. Also, 7 cost 4/3 felt really bad. 7 cost 5/3 still feels really bad, but obviously you get the effect. So, totally down with 5/3. I think 6 is a little bit overkill if they went, you know, really high on that. So, and they mentioned that in the notes here. They don't want it to be too much upside. But I do like it, right? You get 4 of these on field, that's 20 damage for an OTK, and that's more within the realm of playability. So, love that they're once again focusing on cards that aren't played too much, which we're going to see in the next couple of cards too. We got Crack Shot Corsair. This is another card. When it was first released, I said this should have 2 health. Well, here we go. It's at 2 health now, especially with something like War Chefs taken down a notch. This seems like it has maybe a little bit more of a place in some sort of aggressive aggro decks. Aggro decks have definitely come back up in the meta as well. So this might actually see a place again in some sort of pirate aggro with it now having 2 health. It has a little bit more survivability. It survives Unspeakable Horror, Vile Feast, yada, 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 Withering Wail, all that good stuff. So good to see Crackshot Corsair getting a little bit of attention. Jagged Taskmaster, another Not really highly played card whatsoever. I don't know. I like this because it does make sense with the core strategy of the 1-cost deck. You want to get this down as early as possible. I get it. I don't know. This card just kind of feels awkward. I almost want it to be a 1-cost just so it gets buffed too. Like maybe it's a 1-cost 2/2, but then Bilgewater already has Jagged Butcher, so I don't know. This card is just really, really awkward. It does have a good effect. And it for a 2-cost 3/2 and also granting 1-cost allies everywhere, having that effect, that plunder effect. I mean, it does seem like it's statted and costed appropriately. But I don't know. I feel like it's awkward because we never see the 1-cost decks played. They're definitely more possible now with this Call of the Mountain set. We have a lot of 1-cost support. We have Von Yip. We have Fizz. So we'll see if this makes. I don't think this will make a difference, but hey, you never know. And the last two here are, I love both of these as well. I gotta say, I love pretty much every change. The one that's probably, the two that are weirdest to me are War Chefs and Jagged Taskmaster, but they're both, again, they're both okay. Like, they're acceptable. They seem okay. So, Yordle Grifter. Yeah, I'm not gonna lie. When I first saw this card being released, I was like, wait a second. It has an allegiance effect, which draws you a card. So, essentially, it's a 4-mana 3/3 draw card, which that seems a little bit overstated for a draw card feature, having a 3/3 body. But on top of that, it gets a free warning shot all the time. That seemed a little like, wow, okay, you don't even need the allegiance to go off. And the idea, and they mentioned this in the notes, I think this is what they're getting at. The idea with allegiance is that you are going all in on one region, or you are taking a chance, and you're being rewarded for taking a chance. So to have any portion of this card not be allegiance related seems odd. It seems like it should all be under allegiance, and so that's why I 100% agree with this. I think this is great. I think it doesn't really hurt the Nab archetype. It just like slightly reduces its playability a little bit, and that's perfect because Nab was already obviously killed a little bit with things like Pilfered Goods and whatnot being nerfed, and this is, I think, kind of the last little cherry on top to just really cap it off and make it still a very good archetype, but not nearly as strong as it once was. And finally, we have Cygnus Moonstalker. I really liked this card previously. I actually did. When you look at something like Windfarer Hatchling, which was kind of the finisher for Ionia in that elusive deck, that's a 7-cost 4/2. Gives your whole field +2/+2. So basically at that point, it was 1 more mana than the old Cygnus, because the old Cygnus was 4/2. It was 1 more mana, and you didn't need Nightfall to trigger, and you gave your whole field +2/+2, and it had elusive already, the Windfarer Hatchling. So 100% this needed to get buffed. You could even say it could be a 5/4. That might be a little much when you just compare it to other elusive stats. I don't know. I feel like this should be. I feel like Cygnus should be elusive, and then Nightfall gives something else elusive. I think that's what it should actually do. But as of now, it's both under the Nightfall tag. But either way, this was a buff success. I like this. It gives Nightfall a little bit more oomph on the finisher, which I 100% agree with. All right, and before we get into the very last thing that they added that I'm super excited about, we got a couple of the changes here to Gauntlet and stuff like that. Standard Gauntlet. All right, listen. If you read this section, all right, you'll now start off the Standard Gauntlet by picking 3 different decks you'd potentially like to field different. How well? There are a few rules in place. No champion duplicates. No region duplicates, or every region has a different. Every deck has a different region combination, and a maximum of 1 championless deck. After locking in your decks, you queue like normal with your matched opponent and enter the pick and ban lobby. Pick and ban lobby, you ask? I think there's this thing called Runeterra ban that we usually use for tournaments. This whole paragraph does not even read as Standard Gauntlet to me. It reads as we added tournament mode. Like that's what it says to me, which is not a bad thing. I just don't know why it's kind of weird they put it in Gauntlet. I don't know. I guess Gauntlet and Lab are both just places for them to really test out things for the competitive and normal game. So it's cool that they're testing this out. Maybe they roll it out as an entirely new, or maybe they just lump it in with the whole Gauntlet thing, because Gauntlet is also kind of like a competitive event, the actual word itself, the definition. So I don't not like that they lumped it in with that. So awesome to see that this kind of stuff is being put in, along with that what I'll mention at the end here, because it shows they are starting to they're giving a nod to the competitive scene, which is very nice. So then we got a new lab. Welcome to the jungle. Love that song. Okay, so this is, I like this. Like, I'm not going to get into too much, like, what the actual thing is. Basically, they have a vulnerable and a immobile unit, and when you pull it and kill it, you get a buff on one of your units. The reason I like this, though, is that they're giving a nod to League of Legends, and if there's one thing I always give Riot for, or credit for in this game, it's how much they make this game feel like League of Legends, how much they make a champion from this game look, feel, and act exactly like a champion from League of Legends. This is no different. They're even incorporating how it feels to play the jungle into a card game. That's insane. It's so cool that they're able to do stuff like that, and they have the creative power to do so, and they have the crew as creative as they are. The actual team there over at Riot developing the game, just super creative to think of stuff like this. So love seeing this. Love that they're giving a nod to the jungle. Expedition archetypes. This is the part where I don't really talk too much about it. Yeah, they made a bunch of ups and downs, changes to Expedition. I don't play a whole lot of Expedition, but it is still something they are supported. I'm curious to see how popular this is based on like standard and ranked and stuff like that. And last but not least, yup, you're reading that right. You are reading that right. Cross Shard Friend Challenge. And you know what that means? Because the Duels of Runeterra qualifier for Ascent of Targon is this weekend. That means that we can play all the regions in the Cross Shard Friend Challenge. So that is absolutely so awesome. That means SEA, EU, NA, XYZ, ABC, anybody, anywhere, wherever you're at, you can play each other in the game. This is pretty freaking awesome. This tournament's going to be lit. This tournament's going to be so nice. I'm super excited for this to happen. This is going to be one of the larger competitive events ever in the history of Legends of Runeterra right now, which is pretty awesome. And I'm super excited to be being able to cast it with Boulevard. So bug fixes as well, lots of stuff. As always, fixing some bugs. But yeah, overall, I love this. I absolutely love this. I love the change to Ezreal. I love the change to Lee Sin. I think they did a fantastic job. The real test is going to be in 2 weeks. The real test is going to be in 2 weeks with Targon. What are they going to do with Targon? How are they going to change things? That's why I'm not going to mention what cards I think they missed or should change, because I agree with them. I don't think they can fully make changes to the cards they need to until they have another couple of weeks to really observe, especially with these changes to Lee Sin and Ezreal, how the meta shifts and how it reacts. So that's going to be it, though, everybody. That is patch 1.10 in a nutshell, and God, it's a doozy. I got like this build up now of like, I am so excited that there's cross shard play. Oh, I remember one of the first tournaments I ever entered. It was an EU tournament by accident, and I went to go play, and the guy's like, "Hey, I can't find you," and I'm like, what? Huh? What? What's going on? Oh shit, this is EU. Oh, sorry, man. And then I couldn't play in the tournament, and it felt really bad. And it was at that moment that I knew that I fucked up. So it really kind of sucked, and so it's really cool to see that this is a thing now, and that with these tournaments, we are 100% going to be able to play anybody in any region, and it starts this weekend with the qualifier. So be there, be square. Link is going to be in the description to the Discord, to the Smash GG stuff to get registered. But as always, everybody, stay healthy, stay positive. I hope shit just works for you. Peace out.